Okay, so it's recording now. Now I'll make it live on the actual web page. And if you refresh your page now, you should see it. And now I'm going to mute myself.
Hi, you guys. Okay, so I just turned down my volume, and we will just, as we're waiting for people to log in and sign up, if you guys have not already printed off your worksheets, go ahead and go to the bottom, and it says food storage class free resources, and you can print those off right now. Or you can just grab a piece of paper and a pen or a notebook so you can take notes during this class. And then we will get started. Okay. I am so glad that you guys have joined us today, and I was excited when Missy contacted me and asked if I would host this webinar because my husband the other day, they are doing an elders corn party, and it's all about food storage and preparedness. And he asked me, he's like, so what do we have that we can take and show everybody in our food storage? And we're supposed to go and bring something and show it to everybody else. And I'm like, food storage. I'm like, we do not have much. So I am so excited to listen to this course with you guys and to get some tips and hints of how to start our food storage and to get prepared for our family and prepare our home. Misty is going to do the course today, and so I am going to go ahead and turn the time over to her. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and type them down in the question area, and I will be watching that to see if there's anything, if there's any technical issues or anything, we'll address them. But all the questions will be answered at the end of the seminar and the webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Misty.
All right. There's a big pause there because I turned my mic off. All right. Thank you, Kim, for there we go. All right. I will repeat what I just said because I didn't turn my mic on. Okay, first of all, thank you, Kim, for the opportunity to be here and to share this information with all of your followers. I'm grateful for that opportunity. And I hope that all of you find this information useful and applicable in your lives, and that it helps you create this food storage plan for your family so you can move forward. Now, I know that a lot of you, probably most of you today, don't know me. You were introduced to me through Kim. So I'd like to get started just by sharing a little bit about my background and my story so that you know where I'm coming from and maybe why I'm qualified to teach this class. So I'm going to switch over and share some slides with you so that, and then when I'm done with the presentation with the slides, I will switch back to the camera. So when we do the question and answer session. All right, let's start. I grew up being taught by my parents and by my church that food storage was important. And we drank powdered milk and we had buckets of wheat in the basement. My mom even gave me a 3-month food storage supply as a wedding gift. And some of you might kind of be in that same situation. But to be honest, I didn't really believe in food storage as a young adult. I felt no urgency to build a solid food storage or even to really learn to use the little food storage that I had. And even when I initially got pregnant with twin boys in 2007, I didn't think much about food storage. I was far more worried about, normal mom stuff, diapers and car seats and boppy pillows. And then just a few weeks before my twins were born, my husband and I moved from Utah to California so he could attend law school. And we left behind friends, family, and good paying jobs to do that. We found a little apartment and settled in, but to be honest, I was feeling really unsettled internally. I wasn't sure we'd be able to care for ourselves and our growing family if life threw us a curveball. And every day I sat in this tiny little apartment in this huge city with 2 gorgeous babies and no local support system and no income. My husband was gone 16 hours a day or more some days at school, and I realized that we needed to be better prepared. So I started Googling emergency preparedness. And honestly, man alive, I found a lot of information. There's a lot out there. Some of it was helpful, but honestly, much of it was fear-filled, and all of it was kind of this hodgepodge of disconnected and sometimes conflicting advice. There was no real step-by-step system telling me what I should do first and next and last. A lot of the information was over my head and it didn't apply specifically to my family and our needs, and that was frustrating. I was afraid of all the different scenarios I was reading about online, but I felt helpless because I couldn't really figure out how to get prepared for those things. And honestly, studying up on emergency preparedness in this way through Google was kind of squashing my optimism and making it hard for me to enjoy my everyday life. I just wanted a simple, down-to-earth plan that fit me, just a normal mom wanting to do her best to be ready to care for her kids. And not being able to find that type of information made me feel really panicky and vulnerable. So eventually, and this is after months of this, I decided to do what I often do when I feel helpless, and I turned to God. And he helped me realize 2 things. First, he wants me to enjoy my life, my kids, my husband, the beach, the mountains, the rain. Life really is to be enjoyed. And he loves me similarly, although much more perfectly, to how I love my own children. That means that he expects my best. He's not going to save me from every tough situation, but he will help me learn from those situations and develop character in those difficult times. And once I realized those 2 things, I was able to let go of my fear and obsession. All I needed to do was my best. And honestly, my best wasn't much at that time because we had no income. But even if the bad things I feared happened, God would make them meaningful in my life in some way. He'd use them to school me and my children in some way. So I was able to kind of let go of that panicky fear. But this didn't really get me off the hook when it came to working on emergency preparedness, because just like I expect my children to work hard and do their best, because it's good for them to not always rely on me, God expects the same thing from me. So my best wasn't much at first, but I did what I could. And doing this allowed me to let go of that fear and doomsday type pessimism and start enjoying my everyday life again. So I started spending reasonable amounts of time instead of obsessive amounts of time, experimenting with different methods or suggestions or ideas that I'd find online. I'd research, and then I'd practice them, and then I'd experiment with them, and then I'd start over again and adjust them so that they would fit better within my family and fit our needs. So over time, I was able to decide what worked best for our family, and I started sharing what I was learning on my website with other people. And as that website grew, it also brought the opportunity to test many different preparedness products and food storage brands for free. Those companies would send me their products and say, will you test them? Because they want me to obviously talk about them and get other people to buy them. But that allowed me to fairly compare them, right? And I didn't have to invest in each one individually. That's an opportunity that not many people have. I also started to find, as I kept building my website, that there were a lot of other people who were looking for the same simplicity that I wanted. There were many others who wanted to get better prepared, but didn't want to be obsessed with it or have it overtake their lives. Many others who felt panicky and overwhelmed and stuck. And happily, since 2009, I have been blessed to help thousands of these people become better prepared while enjoying their everyday life. Now, you should know that I am not an over-the-top doomsday prepper. I don't have a bunker anywhere. Food storage and emergency preparedness are important to me, but honestly, not any more so than dancing and cuddling with my kids. God and my family are my priorities. And I prepare because I believe God wants me to, and because I love my family and I want to take care of them. So if you feel like I did 9 years ago, the information in today's class is for you. Or if you want to build a food storage, but you feel like your head spins when you try to sit down and plan it out, then the information in today's class is for you. Or if one of your New Year's resolutions is to work on food storage, but you get on Google or Pinterest and you just you leave feeling scared and overwhelmed and confused, then today's class is for you. If you want to be able to confidently care for your family anytime things don't go as planned, but you don't know where to start, then today's class will help you get started. My goal is to help you decide which method you should use to calculate out a food storage for your family. And then second, to give you the tools to make doing that, actually calculating it out, simple. But we'll cover 4 different methods for building a food storage for your family. The Just Add Water Meals method. These are really fancy titles, by the way. I got really creative with them. The Basic Calorie method, the Calorie Plus method, and the Recipe method. There are pros and cons to each of the methods, and we'll discuss those so that you can decide which one is best for your family right now. I'll also show you how to calculate what your family's needs are based on the method you choose so that you don't waste hours of time trying to figure it out on your own. And last, I'll teach you how to make your chosen method work well for you so you don't waste money on food storage that you aren't going to use. But make sure that you stay till the end, because at the end of the class, I will be giving everyone access to a printable summary sheet so you can remember what you've learned, as well as food storage conversion charts and 3 different food storage calculators for free. These calculators typically cost $10 each or $30 total, but I'll be giving them to you for free at the end of today's presentation. Plus, you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have about food storage at the end of the class. Now, please know that I'll cover as much as I can today, and I'll stay and answer your questions as long as is needed, but I just can't give you everything I've learned in the last 9 or 10 years in just an hour. So I will also give you an opportunity to learn more and to continue to work with me at the end of today's class if that's something that you'd like to do. All right, let's jump in to the meat of today. Giving thought to the method you'll choose to calculate your family's food storage is important. Over the last 10 years, I've seen many people begin stocking up food without planning anything out first, and it honestly just isn't smart. I was one of those people. to be honest. I was the first one I ever knew who did this. But over the last 10 years, I've met many others. And to be honest, yes, storing any food is far better than storing no food. But starting without a plan, I've learned personally, creates inefficiency, which results in wasted time and wasted money. And I don't want you to waste either of those. So as I walk you through your choices today, give some serious thought to what will work best for your family. And know that that might be different from what works best for my family or your neighbor's family or Kim's family, and that's totally okay. All right, the first choice for building your food storage is to use pre-made Just Add Water meals. These are pouches of food that have a number of different ingredients in them that you use to make a meal. So one example could be hot cereal, and in the bag there's oats, freeze-dried fruit, nuts, and a bit of sugar. Another might have noodles, tomato powder, mushrooms, seasoning, and freeze-dried sausage in it to create spaghetti. In order to eat them, you simply add water, heat them up, and you're good to go. Now, at first glance, Just Add Water meals are very appealing to many people for two main reasons. First, they make planning what you need to store very simple. You just buy a bucket full of the number of meals you want, and you're done. You don't even need a fancy calculator. Second, they're very easy to use. There's no need to learn to cook with you for food storage when all you've got to do is add water, right? Anyone could do that. In addition, there's one other reason that I personally choose to store some of these. In a disaster situation, I might not be able to find 8 different ingredients, pots, pans, and dishes right away. So for this reason, I keep a few Just Add Water meals upstairs in my regular pantry and a few more in my car. The convenience would be really valuable for just those first few hours or days following a disaster. However, I've found that many people don't know about some of the downsides to Just Add Water meals. So here are 5 to consider. First, they honestly just don't taste great. Let's just get that truth out there. Since I've tested many of these, I've tasted many brands, and some are a little bit better than others. And I would say that for the most part, there's none that are just inedible, that are just terrible. But since all the ingredients are in one bag, okay, Kim just let me know it is stuck on the first slide. Sorry, I can't see the presentation. So you guys are just staring at the first slide as I'm talking. How frustrating. I'm so sorry. Okay, let me pull out of this and see if I can fix that for you. Okay, screen share. Okay, does that fix it? Let's see, it takes a second. There's always a little bit of a lag behind what I'm saying and doing. You guys didn't get to see any of those fun slides. That's so sad. Okay, let's see if this works. Come on. It's still not working. All right, let's try this. Go over here. Whoa. Stop screen sharing. Okay, let's see. I am so sorry. This is so frustrating. Yay! Oh, except for it's backwards. Why is it backwards? Is it backwards for you, Kim? Looks like it's backwards for me, and I'm not quite sure how to fix that. Okay, let's try this. I've never done this before. It's not backwards, it looked good. Okay, we're gonna just go with that then. All right, okay. Through them. Thank you for your patience, and again, I apologize. Months for Just Add Water meals. Now what I will do, I will re-record this after we're done today, so that when I send out the replay, the slides are there and you don't have to watch me figure out how to get them to work appropriately. Again, I apologize for that. All right. Okay, so the first downside is that they don't taste great. We went through that. Okay. The second is that they're difficult to rotate. So because of the not so great taste, it's unlikely your family's going to want to eat them instead of your regular dinners made with fresh ingredients. So they're just going to sit on the shelf and not be used unless you're actually forced to use them. And if you're not forced to use them, you'll end up tossing out thousands of dollars worth of food, which is just really sad. Third, they offer poor nutrition. So in order to maintain a 20-year shelf life when you mix different ingredients, you have to add preservatives. So most of these Just Add Water meals are going to contain very large amounts of salt, MSG, sugar, or other damaging additives. Now, obviously, eating these for a day or two isn't going to permanently damage anyone's health. But if you're planning a long-term food storage with these for months long, that could damage your health. In addition to the additives and preservatives, many of the Just Add Water meals include, they're very heavy on white grains like white rice or white pasta. And so they have very little veggies or meat and proteins. So those refined grains are full of lots of calories, which allows the companies to say, you're getting X number of calories, but they don't have much else in them. They're not going to sustain energy long term. Fourth, they won't help your mood in an emergency situation. What you eat really does affect your mood. One of my favorite quotes about food in general is from Virginia Woolf, who said, "One cannot think well, love well, or sleep well if one has not dined well." And honestly, I can't think of a time when it will be more important to think, love, and sleep well than following a natural disaster or during a period of financial insecurity. So both the inferior taste and the inferior nutrition are going to contribute to kind of this negative mood. Last, they cost a lot. Now, at first glance, many Just Add Water meals may seem to be an inexpensive option, but this can be deceiving. A bucket may claim to have 30 meals for a family of 5 in it, but when you actually look at the calories or the serving size, each person is actually getting less, and sometimes far less, like 400, than 1,000 calories a day. Now, since you can't reasonably survive, at least not well, on so few calories for weeks or months, you would need to buy 2 buckets instead of 1, or maybe even 3 buckets, and this will double or triple your cost. In addition, some companies will claim 2,000 calories per day, but a large portion of those calories, as we already talked about, is coming from refined grains. In addition, a very large portion can sometimes come from sugar-filled drinks and not from food at all. So you may get 1,200 to 1,300 calories from food, and then the rest from sugary drinks. In addition, if you choose to supplement those refined grain meals with additional fruit, veggies, or proteins, you're going to increase your cost. So I've found that when I calculate cost per calories for actual food, Just Add Water meals are almost always the most expensive option. So in summary, Just Add Water meals are a good option if you're paralyzed by the effort and time required by the other 3 options that we'll discuss today. And if you do choose to store a long-term supply of Just Add Water meals, here are some tips to make it work for you. Taste as many options as you can before fully investing in one so that you find one that your family is okay eating. Second, set a schedule to eat one of those Just Add Water meals every month or so you can rotate through them and not waste them. Try to find options with less additives and preservatives in them. Look for options that include a good balance of grains, produce, and protein, or purchase additional produce and protein on the side. And then be careful of the cost. Make sure that you're figuring and comparing cost per calorie, not just cost per serving. All right. The next method for building a food storage is what I like to call the basic calorie method. And this is what most people will think of when they think of a food storage. The basic calorie method includes basic life-sustaining foods like whole grains, beans, oils, sugars, baking supplies, powdered milk. And when using this method to plan your food storage, you calculate what you need based on the number of calories you want to eat each day. There are some calculators out there that use pounds to calculate needs, but I don't suggest this as it's simply not as accurate as counting calories. So many people wonder, how many calories a day should I store? In fact, this is the most common question I got back that people sent me before the webinar. And it's honestly a great question, a really important question, but it's not one I can answer directly because I don't know you and your situation. I can, however, guide you in making a decision. So consider these 3 questions. First, how many calories a day do you eat right now? And if you don't know exactly, guesstimate. How much exercise or other physically exerting tasks do you do each day or each week right now? And then think about the disasters your family are most likely to face. Would they require more or less physically exerting tasks than you do right now? And include the stress, because stress takes energy. Many people choose to store a very minimal amount of calories per day, and in my opinion, that's just not wise. It's very likely you'll need to store more and not less, because you're going to need more energy and not less in a disaster situation. So I suggest you store at least the number of calories you currently consume, if not more. As a general guide, that's typically somewhere between 1,800 to 2,500 calories per day per adult, including teenagers, and maybe 1,200 to 1,800 per child, depending on their age. So that gives you kind of a general answer there. Now, there are 3 main benefits to using this method to plan and build your family's food storage. First, it is extremely cost effective. These foods are the least expensive calories you can get. This is how I started back when we were in law school with very little money, but I wanted to do something. Second, it's relatively easy to plan. While it's not quite as simple as the Just Add Water meals, it's not going to take days or even hours to plan what you need. The calculator I'll be giving you at the end of this class will do the math for you, and in just a matter of minutes, you can have a shopping list ready of what you need to purchase. Last, and very importantly, at least in my opinion, this method offers very quick peace of mind. Most families can afford both the time and money to get at least a 2 to 4 week supply of basic foods in their home. And this can bring valuable peace of mind. Some of the other methods require more time or more money, but with the basic calorie method, that peace of mind can be found very quickly. All right, there are a few additional things to think about when considering the basic calorie method. The first is that there is a learning curve to cooking with these foods. Now, most people, not all, but most people don't regularly use things like wheat and powdered milk in their everyday cooking. And some people don't bake or cook much from scratch, so they also don't use things like sugar, baking soda, and dry beans. That's not true of everyone, but if that is true of you, you're going to face a learning curve as you begin to use these basic foods. And you might think, like I did years ago, oh, well, I'll just get them now and then I'll learn to use them eventually. I don't recommend that. I highly suggest you learn to use them now before you're forced to use them. It will require an investment of your time now, but you have the time right now. And it's not as difficult as it might seem at first. But if you store these types of foods and don't learn how to use them, you're going to significantly increase your stress level during an emergency when you really don't have the time to learn anymore. Stress already going to be high. And think about it, having to learn how to use wheat when the internet's down and you didn't realize that you needed a wheat grinder to turn it into flour, that might just put you over the edge. So make sure you learn to use them. Second, basic food can be difficult to rotate. If you fit in the category of those who cook from scratch, who don't cook from scratch and don't want to, you're going to find it really difficult to rotate through these foods. Even if you're disciplined enough to learn how to use them, if you don't have or make the time to do so regularly, they're just going to sit on your shelf unless you're forced to use them. And just like we talked about with the Just Add Water meals, you may end up wasting a lot of food. Third, eating only basic foods can cause food fatigue. So like I mentioned earlier, what you eat affects your mood. And when cooked by someone who knows how to use them, most basic foods can actually be quite tasty. So it's not the foods themselves that are going to cause food fatigue, it's the lack of variety. These basic foods can sometimes become boring because you're eating the same thing over and over again, and that can affect your mood and be difficult psychologically. So again, you'll want to be at the top of your game during an emergency or job loss or disaster. So this is something to think about when you're considering this method. Fourth, basic foods can cause digestive issues. Now, while foods in this basic category are healthy, there is a catch. If you're not used to eating whole grains and beans, but then you start doing so because you're forced to, you'll get sick with digestive issues. These are going to sap your energy just when you need it, increase your stress, and add more problems during a difficult time. In a true emergency situation where there isn't access to quality medical care for even a few days, these issues can become especially dangerous, particularly if you care for young children or the elderly. However, if you learn to cook these foods and do so regularly, this isn't going to be an issue for your family. Fifth, basic foods are missing certain nutrients. While all the foods found in the basic food category are healthy, they do lack nutrients that are found in fruits and vegetables. You can get some of those if you choose to sprout your grains and beans, but not all of them. Last, it's difficult to create full meals with just basic foods. This method simply calls for storing enough basic calories to sustain life, but that doesn't automatically mean you'll be able to make full meals out of the calories you have stored. You can rotate through the ingredients you store by making bread or serving a side of beans for dinner, but it can be really difficult to create full meals from just basic ingredients. So in summary, the basic calorie food storage method is a good option for those on a tight budget who like to cook from scratch. And if you choose to go with this method, learn to use the foods that you store if you don't already know how. Make certain you have a grain mill so that you can turn your grains into flour. Cook from scratch at least weekly to rotate through your food storage and to make sure your digestive systems are used to whole grains and beans. Store your family's favorite spices and herbs in addition to what's recommended in the calculator I'll give you to help avoid food fatigue. Learn to sprout grains and beans and consider gardening and or storing fruits and vegetables at some point in the future as your finances allow. Method number 3, I call the Calorie Plus method, and it's similar to the basic calorie method, but it's more robust. This method still uses whole grains, beans, powdered milk, baking supplies as its base. But then it also includes fruits, vegetables, condiments, meats, and even cheese and things if you want that. What you need to store is still calculated based on calories. And there are 4 main benefits to the Calorie Plus method. First, it's still relatively easy to plan. With the Calorie Plus method, you're still getting food storage based on calories. So while there are more items to choose from in the calculator than in the basic calorie method, it's still a really simple process and it's not going to take you a huge amount of effort. Second, the food you store is well balanced and nutritious. So with the Calorie Plus method, you're focused on balanced calories. You're going to store foods from all the food groups, which means your food storage is better balanced and more nutritious overall. You won't experience food fatigue. This method allows for a wide variety of foods in your food storage, which is going to allow for more exciting meals. So you're not going to have to worry about getting tired of the food that you store. And creating meals is easier. Now, it's not quite as easy as the recipe method, which we'll talk about next. But creating meals from food storage built using the Calorie Plus method is far easier than just the calorie method because you have things from all the food groups. However, there are still a few drawbacks to consider. First, there is, again, a learning curve. Since the Calorie Plus method still uses the same foods from the basic calorie method, you're still going to have similar concerns with the learning curve if you don't already know how to use those items. However, the fruits, veggies, and meats that you store will likely have a less of a learning curve because it's likely you use those things more often in your everyday cooking. Second, rotation can still be difficult. So even though some of the foods stored with this method are more familiar, I've found that people will still store things they don't use regularly. For example, I don't like canned green beans, or to be honest, really most any canned fruit or vegetable. But when I started adding produce to my food storage, that was the only way I knew how to get shelf-stable produce. So I stored canned green beans. But sadly, we rarely ate it and ended up wasting a lot of it. You might have the same problem if you don't know where to get quality food. In addition, this method still requires more from scratch cooking. If you don't have or make the time to create meals with your food storage regularly, it's just going to sit on your shelf and not be used unless you're forced to use it. And once again, that's a waste of money. Third, you may still experience digestive issues. Because this method is still grain and bean heavy, you'll have those same issues if you aren't eating those foods on a regular basis. And last, it can still be difficult to create full meals. Now, I know that I've listed this as both a pro and a con for this method. I want to emphasize that if you choose to store food based on calories, that doing so using the Calorie Plus method is going to make creating meals far easier than doing so using the basic calorie method. And that's why I've listed it as a pro. But anytime you store food based on calories, you may still end up with some awkward meals. And this is because even if you have a balanced number of total veggies, grains, dairy, you may have too much or not enough of one specific ingredient. For example, you may end up with a lot of extra spaghetti noodles and not enough tomato sauce to finish your meal. So in summary, the Calorie Plus method is a good option for those who want a well-balanced food storage, but don't need the least expensive option and aren't ready to spend the time required for the last method that we'll discuss today. If you choose to go with the Calorie Plus method, be sure that you learn to use the food you store if you don't already know how. Have a grain meal so that you can turn your grains into flour, and cook from scratch at least weekly to rotate through your food storage and make sure your digestive systems are used to whole grains and beans. Alrighty, the last method. I call it the recipe method. And the idea behind the recipe method is that the food you store is based on recipes. In other words, you should store the ingredients you need to make specific recipes instead of just basing your food storage on calories. The first step is to gather recipes your family likes to eat. And then you need to convert them to shelf-stable ingredients. Now, at the end of today's class, you'll be given food storage conversion charts that will make that easier. Next, you calculate ingredients that are needed for each of your recipes. Now, this isn't going to be possible with 100% of recipes because, there's no full steak available in shelf-stable format. But with the amazing shelf-stable foods that are available today, it can happen for most recipes. I'd say 60 to 70%. And again, the food storage conversion charts that I give you will help you take your family's existing recipes and convert them into shelf-stable foods. Now, there are 5 main benefits to using the recipe method to plan and build your food storage. First is that your food's going to be really easy to use. When and if you have to use it, this is going to be the easiest method to just quickly switch to. There isn't a lot of a learning curve to making recipes that your family already enjoys. Second, your food storage is going to be well balanced and nutritious. Now, part of that obviously is going to depend on how well balanced your family's current recipes are, how healthy they are, but at the very least, basing your food storage on recipes you're already eating means that your food storage will have the same level of nutrition that your current diet does. This also solves the problem of those who have food allergies and they think, well, I'm gluten-free, I can't store wheat. Well, instead of going with the basic calorie method, choose the recipe method and just choose shelf-stable versions of the foods that you're already eating. Also, you won't experience food fatigue. When you store food based on recipes, you get to decide how much variety to include. And no matter what you choose, The recipes are foods that your family already likes and enjoy. Fourth, rotation is easier, which means you're going to waste less food because you're storing ingredients for food or for recipes that your family already uses. So instead of trying to feed your family foods they aren't used to and maybe don't like, you're feeding them things that you know they already enjoy and will naturally rotate through that food without a whole lot of effort. In addition, there are a few extra benefits. Sometimes people think the only reason to have food storage is so they can use it in a natural disaster, long-term job loss, or something else similarly huge. Now, obviously, it's going to be beneficial in that circumstance, but it is quite possible that you're never going to face something huge like that. But by storing foods your family regularly uses in recipes that they already like, you're going to benefit your family in more everyday ways. Now, this is true no matter how you cook. Maybe you already cook with foods from the basic calorie method. Most people don't, but if you do, great. That's what you're going to store. You're going to store those types of foods using the recipe method. But if you're storing food that you regularly use, then think of these things. You're going to decrease the time you spend planning meals, making grocery lists, and shopping at the grocery store. Or what about a week where you're sick and overly busy and you just can't find the time to get to the grocery store? And pull out your food storage that your family already likes and avoid the cost and poor nutrition of fast food. Or what about a week when there's a really bad snowstorm and the power's on, you could go to the grocery store, but you really don't want to, like yesterday in Utah. So you can pull out your food storage and keep yourself warm and safe. Or how about the night where you find out a friend or neighbor just experienced a loss or tragedy of some sort, but it's just hours before dinner? If you already know how to use your food storage, you can just pull it out and whip up a quick meal to show you care. So again, while having any food storage can help with these things, having food storage that you regularly use anyway makes these things a lot easier and a lot more beneficial. There are only two real downsides to the recipe method, but they can both be extremely hard to overcome. First, it's time-consuming to plan. Gathering recipes, converting them to shelf-stable format, that can be very time-consuming, overwhelming, and to be honest, just plain hard. Now, the calculator I give you, I'm talking too fast. The calculator I will give you will help with this. It's going to make the actual calculation part very quick and easy, but you're still going to have to decide which recipes you want and convert them to a shelf-stable format. Second, the cost can be higher, not as costly as the Just Add Water meals, but for most people, this method isn't going to be whole grain and bean heavy unless that's what you eat regularly. So shelf-stable fruits, vegetables, meats, and cheeses are a lot more expensive per calorie than those basics are. One thing I have noticed, though, as I have kind of switched to this method, is that those shelf-stable fruits, vegetables, meats, and cheeses, they don't go bad. So whereas before I would buy a stalk of celery and use half of it or maybe a third of it and throw the rest away, now I just scoop out a quarter cup celery out of my can, use that, and the rest of it stays good for a year. So I'm wasting less food, which means that my grocery budget hasn't really gone up as I've started buying these foods that at first kind of seem more expensive. So in summary, the recipe method is a good option for those who want a highly customized, easy-to-use food storage that they know their family will enjoy eating and are willing to invest time in planning that food storage and money into building it. So if you choose to go with the recipe method, commit to investing a significant amount of time. Pick 3 to 5 breakfast, lunch, and maybe 7 to 14 dinner recipes, and then convert those recipes to shelf-stable ingredients. I also suggest you try making them at least once, so that you know that they'll work out with those shelf-stable ingredients. Then use the calculator I'll provide you with in a bit to calculate out how much of each ingredient you need. And also, if you really want to go with the recipe method right out, remember that you can plan and build just 1 month at a time if you need to for financial reasons. Now, next, I'd like to share with you what I've done as I've built a food storage for a family. However, I want to emphasize that I'm not telling you to do what I did. What I've done may not be right for your family. I'm sharing this because I get that seeing how someone else has put things into action can be a helpful starting point, even if you don't end up doing things the exact same way. So give me just a second. I'm going to take a drink. All right, we'll go on. Now, when I first started with food storage, we were very poor law school students, as mentioned. I didn't have any extra money. So for this reason and the fact that I didn't know much about all the options out there for food storage, I started with the basic calorie plan. I purchased enough calories of wheat, rice, beans, powdered milk, macaroni, dehydrated apples and onions, oats, and sugar to last my husband and I for 1 month. Our twins were still breastfeeding at this point. In addition, I bought a very inexpensive hand-grained meal and learned to make homemade bread. Storing that food and learning the little I did brought an incredible peace of mind. I loved knowing that we had something, anything stored away, and that it would keep us alive if it needed to. But man, alive am I glad I never had to use that food exclusively. It would have been so overwhelming, and I have no idea what kind of meals I could have made. Over time, I kind of switched to the Calorie Plus plan. Now, I didn't actually calculate out the calories, but I did slowly add more fruits, vegetables, and meats to our storage. I didn't have space for a garden at the time, the money to invest in canning equipment, or quite honestly, the energy to learn how to do all that. I had 3 children aged 2 and under at that time. So I bought grocery store cans, and I didn't love the texture, how they worked in my recipes, but honestly, I didn't realize that there were other options. Still, having those cans brought increased peace of mind. It wasn't food that we hated or didn't know how to use. And I convinced myself I'd get around to eating it and we'd have it for dinner more often. But unfortunately, we really didn't do that often enough, and I wasted a lot of food because we didn't rotate through it. Eventually, I learned about and tasted freeze-dried foods. I was amazed at how close to fresh they tasted in my family's recipes. We were doing better financially at this point, and I realized that with freeze-dried foods, I could base my food storage off recipes my family already knew and loved. My goal was to create a full plan based on recipes, but honestly, I was a little overzealous, didn't realize how hard that was going to be. So eventually, I really just started by adding food I knew I used regularly in recipes. So for a couple years, I just kept randomly adding foods like freeze-dried chicken, green beans, corn, strawberries, potatoes, cheese, things like that. And as my food storage grew, I loved knowing that there were many recipes I could make with my food storage, but I really still wasn't sure how much of each ingredient I needed for a 3-month or 6-month or 12-month supply. It wasn't until 2014, about 2.5 years ago, that I actually sat down and calculated that out. I started by choosing the recipes we love, and then I tested each recipe by making it 2 to 3 times with shelf-stable ingredients. Now, I recommend you do it once. I did it 2 to 3 times because I was at the same time writing a recipe book for other people to be able to use these recipes. So I wanted to make sure that I got them just right. Once I had every recipe converted, I created a calculator so that I could figure out how much of each ingredient I needed. Now, as I've thought about the process I've went through, I want to offer a few encouraging thoughts. First, some food is always better than no food. Don't let the fear of choosing the wrong method keep you from storing food for your family. Make the best decision you can with the information you have, but make a decision and then act. Store something. The peace of mind is priceless. Second, it's okay to start simple, even if that's not where you want to end up eventually. It's okay to start with the basic calorie method. That is where I started. Or if you really want to, start with the recipe method, but pick just a few recipes instead of the 7 to 14 I recently picked. You don't have to go all out like I have recently. I only did that after I'd been doing this for years. I do suggest that you keep your long-term food storage goals in mind so that you don't buy things that won't fit into that plan at all. But by starting simple, you allow for immediate peace of mind and quick wins that motivate you to keep moving forward. Third, mistakes are okay. I wish I'd never stored so much canned grocery foods, but hey, I learned. Our family had food insurance during that time, and it ended up benefiting a local food bank. It's okay that I made the quote-unquote wrong choice for our family. It was better than not making any choice at all. Last, the method you choose will likely evolve and change over time. Maybe right now you don't have time to learn to use basic foods, but in 5 years, when all of your kids are in school, you will. Or maybe right now you're living on student loans and you don't have any extra income for freeze-dried foods, but in 10 years, when you're well into your career, you will be able to afford them. Your tastes will also likely change over time, which means you may change the recipes you store food for. That's not a problem as long as you're rotating through that food. Just be open to that and keep it in mind as you choose which method you will move forward with for now. So remember my story and those 4 encouraging tips. You can build a food storage for your family, and you can gain peace of mind and become more self-reliant. Now, as a review, Just Add Water meals are a good option if you're paralyzed by the effort and time required by the other 3 options. The basic calorie method is a good option for those on a tight budget who like to cook from scratch. The Calorie Plus method is a good option for those who want a well-balanced food storage, but don't want to spend the time required for the recipe method. And last, the recipe method is a good option for those who want a customized, easy-to-use food storage and are willing to invest the time. Now, many people emailed me before class asking about inventory systems, which is a great question. There are 2 that I recommend when people ask me this question. The first is called the Preparedness Planner, and this was written by, or created, I guess, by a friend named Jennifer. When I found her planner, she wasn't a friend. I didn't know her at all. But since finding her planner, we have become friends. And this is a very extensive paper planner, and she is very responsive to questions or things that you might have as you work through using it and applying it to your family. It's the best one I've ever seen. Second, if you have a smartphone, I recommend an app called Prep and Pantry. And this app works great for a couple reasons. First, it allows you to record where you're storing your food. So if you don't have a big food storage room in your basement and you store some of it under, Jimmy's bed and half of it in Jane's closet, you can keep track of those locations here, which makes it easier to find and then rotate through your food. Second, when you add to your food storage, you can scan the food in. And then when you take that food storage out and put it in your pantry where you're going to use it, you can scan it out. Meaning you always know exactly what you need. You can take, you're going to have your phone on you at the store, because we all do these days, right? And if you see a sale on, say, rice, you can look it up and say, do I need more rice? And if you don't, then you don't buy it. You don't waste the money. And if you do, then you're able to take advantage of the sale. So both of those are good inventory systems that I suggest. And there are 3 food storage calculators that I've created to help you calculate your family's food storage needs once you've chosen a method. The first is for the basic calorie method, the second is for the Calorie Plus, and the third is for the recipe method. Now, each calculator can be adjusted in various ways to fit your family's current needs. So, for example, you might use one calculator now and a different one in a few years. Or you might start with a 1-month supply and then eventually work up to a 12-month supply. I typically charge $10 for each calculator on my website, but as a thank you for attending this class today, I'd like to give them all to you for free. Below this video, actually below the chat, you're going to find a link that says Food Storage Class Free Resources. Now, if you click on that link right now, you will not yet be able to access the page. I'll give you access in just a few minutes. It just requires a password. But once you have access, you will find the 3 calculators along with videos showing you how to use each one, a summary sheet of today's lesson, as well as multiple food storage conversion charts. Plus, at the bottom, you'll find links to those 2 inventory systems I mentioned. Now, I sincerely hope that these tools help you to build a food storage for your family. Now, if you appreciate the value of what I've taught here today, like I mentioned in the beginning, I just simply cannot go over everything I've learned in the last 10 years. So if you're ready, really ready to start getting your busy family completely ready for emergencies, I have more support available for you. I know that you took the time to show up today because you're smart and you care about your family. You want to be able to care for them even when things don't go as planned, and you don't want to rely on others that may or may not be reliable to do this. If you didn't believe those things, you wouldn't have come to today's class. Maybe you even have a New Year's resolution to do this, but another reason you're here in this class is because you haven't quite found a way to fully prepare your family yet, right? You wouldn't be here if you were completely ready. Excuse me, I need another drink. The truth is, and I know this because I've been there, you're busy. You don't have time for that never-ending Googling about emergency preparedness. Sometimes trying to fit emergency preparedness into your life kind of feels like trying to push a round peg into a square hole, and it just doesn't work, or at least it hasn't worked for you yet. I've been there. I know how impractical it feels to wade through all that staggering amount of conflicting information that's available in Google Land. But happily, I'm not there anymore. Now, there's always room for development and growth, but I feel confident that I can care for my family regardless of what life will throw at us. And so do those that I've coached over the last few years. Here's what one young mother, Stephanie, had to say after working with me a couple years ago. Like many people who are beginning to realize the necessity of being prepared, I was completely overwhelmed. So much so, I was practically paralyzed. Misty really helped me break down all of the different components of emergency preparedness, and she made it extremely easy to be focused and accomplish my goals. My family is now well on its way to being prepared for anything that may come our way. So today I've given you enough information for you to calculate out a solid food storage plan for your family. But I'd like to do more, and I want to give you a choice today. You can choose to take the info I've given you and run with it on your own. This class, I've done everything I can to pack it full of helpful info and tools that I sincerely believe will help you make progress with your food storage. But if you want to learn more about food storage and continue to progress in other areas of emergency preparedness, like water storage, purification, types of food storage, evacuation, first aid, power outages, and more, then I have an option, a way for you to do that. I'd like to invite you to enroll in a comprehensive emergency preparedness course that I wrote that I call Simply Prepared. It's a 12-step online learning system that I've built to support moms and families in getting prepared for emergencies without all that never-ending Googling and the tiresome research that gets so frustrating. This is the system that I wish I had when I started thinking about emergency preparedness back in 2007. Now, each week you go through one pre-recorded module anytime that it's convenient for you. Each module, each lesson is available in video, downloadable audio, and printable formats. So you can go through them as I release them weekly, or you can work on just one a month at your own pace. Because they're available in so many formats, you can access them while their kids are at school or at midnight when everything's quiet, or during your commute or out on your run. Now, each of the 12 modules includes 1 to 3 clear and easy to implement lessons that will walk you through the process of preparing your family for emergencies. So there's 12 modules and 24 lessons total. At the end of the first module, module 0, you'll have the perspective and momentum you need to be successful and the money and time to truly get prepared. The eye-opening worksheets in module 1 have been a favorite of those who have taken this course in the past. They will help you to avoid the biggest mistake you can make while working to prepare your family for emergencies. And once you complete them, you'll know exactly what you need and don't need to prepare for. In module 3, you'll create a practical and surefire emergency plan for your family, as well as learn some methods for teaching that plan to young children without scaring or overwhelming them. In module 4, I'll debunk some myths about how to calculate how much water your family needs. There's a lot of different opinions and ideas out of there, and honestly, a lot of misinformation on that topic. So we'll talk about that and help you decide what containers you're going to store your water in. In module 5, you'll learn proven ways to both find and then properly clean other water sources. I'm behind here on the slides again. There we go. Okay, in module 6, we'll take an in-depth look at and compare the 4 methods that we've talked about today. Basically, you've had that lesson that's part of module 6. The second lesson, we'll talk about the 3 types of shelf-stable food, so you can successfully choose quality food that will be useful to your family when you need it. In module 7, we'll plan your food storage. I'll show you how to use the calculators, but in addition to that, I'll guide you in setting effective short and long-term goals so that you can build your food storage one step at a time in a logical, smart manner. Now, all the food in the world isn't going to do you much good if you don't know how to use it. So in module 8, I will help you save time, money, avoid waste, and even decrease that daily mealtime stress by showing you how to regularly use the food you're storing. In addition to food and water, there are a lot of other supplies that are important in an emergency preparedness plan. So in module 9, you'll find out which first aid, communication, hygiene, sanitation supplies are useful, practical and reliable, and then which ones you don't need to help you save money. Power outages are a disaster that most everyone will face at one time or another for various reasons, and long-term outages can be dangerous. So in Module 10, we'll make sure you have the skills and the tools to both cook and then stay warm if it's cold or cool if it's hot during a power outage. Finally, in Module 11, you'll create an evacuation plan that guarantees you're going to grab what's most important to your family first, even when fighting off panic. So that's the 12 modules and the things that you're going to learn through the lessons in the course, either by watching, listening, or reading them. But in addition to that, the course includes worksheets that will help you more fully understand what you're learning, so that you can apply that to your family and your situation. I don't want you to invest money in anything that's wasteful. Second, there's challenges for each lesson to help you apply what you've learned. Third, I'll give you printable summaries, comparisons, lists to help you recall what you've learned, so you can continue to improve that preparation over time. And then last, I'll give you charts to summarize everything so you can easily compare the pros and cons of various options and make informed decisions so that you don't waste money on something that's not going to work for your family. Plus, outside of the actual course content where you log in and it's, protected and you find all this stuff, there are 3 additional bonuses. The first is an online community where you can collaborate with people like you every day. So this is a great place to get support from other moms, other families who are working to get prepared. Plus, I'll be in there and answer any question you post there within 24 hours. There are also 3 live Q&A sessions with me where you can call in and discuss course content in more detail and get any of your specific questions answered. And then there's what I'm calling expert extras. Now, what I've done is I've reached out to 5 different experts in the preparedness industry and asked them to go in more depth on a few specific topics. And so you'll have access to those. Some of them are in video format and some of them are in printable format. There are also 2 bonuses that you get when the course is completed. The first is called a Preparedness Priority Roadmap, and everyone who enrolls in the course will receive this. It will continue to help you invest your time and money wisely, even once the course modules are all complete. And second, anyone who completes all the course worksheets by August 31st and emails them to me will get $50 in free food storage, a $50 credit to Thrive Life. So to enroll in the Simply Prepared e-course, you can choose to invest 3 payments of $97, or you can save $44 by paying $249 at the time of enrollment. Now, I've had many students go through this course already, and here's just what just 2 of them have to say. First is Rob. He is a U.S. Marine, a firefighter, a paramedic, and he says this: "Preparedness has been my thing for more than 20 years. Misty has by far the most complete and well thought out preparedness course of anything I've seen. It will be the best money you spend on preparedness." And Jerica, a young mother, says, "Misty's e-course covers everything in one stop. It's easy, contagious, and addictive. Her course got us all the tools and resources we needed to be prepared, and it cut out the extensive info search. As I followed her program, it felt like a weight was lifted." All right, now I know that it can be really easy to procrastinate, well, anything, but particularly preparedness, because it doesn't feel urgent. So I want to make it a little bit more urgent for you because I believe it's important, and I believe you think it's important. So I have a fast action bonus available as well. The first 40 people to enroll will receive, I need to slow down, right? Because I keep saying will receive like it's a W instead of an R. Will receive $50 in free food storage. I'll give you a credit to Thrive Life that you can use for anything you want there. I also have a bonus that I'm only giving to those who have attended or at least registered for a webinar. So if you enroll within 5 days of the webinar, you will also get a copy of my 72-hour kit plan ebook. Now, this is the system that kind of put my website on the map. It went crazy on Pinterest, and a lot of people have found this system really helpful to actually creating a customized 72-hour kit. You'll get a copy of my food storage recipe book. These are those recipes that I made 2 or 3 times and hired a photographer, and They are all made with shelf-stable ingredients and all delicious. My kids love them. And then last, you'll get a copy of my grab-and-go binder pages that can be filled out electronically. Some of you might have seen that I offer these for free, but those are the ones you fill in by hand. These can be typed into and then saved to your computer, which makes changing them if your info changes later a lot easier. I know that you're busy, so you will have lifetime access to the materials in this course and the Facebook community built for it. This means that while the modules are released one at a time over the next few weeks, they're never taken away from you once they've been released. So if you need to, you can just work through the course at your own pace. Take a year or 2 years. Plus, with the content being downloadable, you can work on the course material anytime, day or night, like in the car, the tub, in front of your computer, on the treadmill, whatever. And last, I want you to be confident and comfortable in your investment. I don't want you to have to take a risk that feels scary to you. So I offer a 100% money back guarantee. If for any reason you enroll and then find that the course doesn't meet your needs, you have 3 weeks from the start date of the course to request a full refund from me. If you'd like to read more about the Simply Prepared e-course, so you can scroll down below the chat there and you'll find a button that says Learn More About the Simply Prepared e-course. If you have questions about it, you can add those to the chat or you can email me personally. All right, now let's get on to the free resources I promised all of you who stayed until the end. Thank you for doing so. I truly am grateful for your time today. I know that not all of you are going to enroll in my e-course, and I am absolutely okay with that. I enjoy helping people, and I believe that these resources will help you with your food storage, and that is a great place to start. Now, if you, again, scroll down below the chat, you'll see that button that says Food Storage Class Free Resources. If you click on that, you're going to be taken to a page that asks you for a password. The password to access that page is food storage. It is all one word, there are no spaces, and it is all caps. You can see it there on the slide. Food storage, all caps, and no spaces. On that page, you're going to be able to download the calculators and watch tutorial videos to help you use them. You'll also find a printable summary of today's lesson, food storage conversion charts, and links to the 2 inventory systems I mentioned. All right, now let's get your questions answered. If you haven't already entered some questions down there in the chat, the Q&A, go ahead and start typing those in there. Feel free to ask about anything about planning a food storage or about the Simply Prepared e-course. I'll start with the questions that have already been asked in the chat, but feel free to continue adding them, and I'll stay as long as I need to get all your questions answered. I'm going to stop screen sharing here, hopefully successfully this time, and turn Kim's mic back on so that she can talk. All right, there we go. I'm gonna turn.
Okay.
Okay, Kim, what questions do we have?
Thank you so much for all of your expertise and everything that you've shared today. I loved that you talked about like the cons of each method and then how to overcome those cons too, and the pros also of each method. I think my favorite was for sure the recipe method, because I know that as we keep storing things that we actually use, then we will be more likely to use them. My parents, my mom was really great with this. She always has had a food storage, and when my brother served a mission and maybe times got tight, she was able to rely on that food storage and be able to use that to supplement them. So the questions that it looks like have been asked, and it is, I am really interested in getting recipe ideas for the recipe method. What recipes do you guys use? And I'll have Misty answer that. And maybe having some technical difficulties, you guys. Let me see if I can get Misty.
Kim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, it kicked me out. I am coming back.
Yeah,
you can start asking me questions and I'll start answering them.
Your video though.
Okay. Back. Sorry. Okay. Go ahead. What questions do we have?
Okay, so the first question is, I'm really interested in getting recipe ideas for the recipe method. What recipes do you guys use?
Sorry, can you repeat it? I couldn't hear you very well.
You can't hear me? Okay. I'm really interested in getting recipe ideas for the recipe method. What recipes do you guys use?
Okay. I'll allow other people to answer down there in the chat as well, but I honestly have just picked recipes that I know my family likes. So one example would be, we love spaghetti. And obviously a lot of that is already shelf stable. Spaghetti noodles are, tomato sauce is, but the meat isn't. So I had to decide, how am I going to get meat in a freeze-dried format? And I chose freeze-dried sausage. Other things, we like a lot of soups, so chicken noodle soup. Any recipe, almost any recipe that your family likes can be converted to shelf-stable ingredients. You can also find a lot on my website. About half of the ones that are in the book are actually on the website. And then there are more even in my recipe book. And if anybody else has ideas, you're welcome to add those to the chat as well.
Yeah, I love that. That is the only question.
Okay, let's see. I'm wondering if they've lost us too. I don't know for sure. I know it's still recording, but let me add one thing here and make sure that everybody can still hear us. Does it say how many people are actually there, Kim?
It has a little person guy that shows 5. But it's fluctuated through the whole thing. Somebody was saying that they were on there and it said that the webinar said starting in 5 days.
That's good. Okay. All right, well, we will leave it there then and sign off. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me, misty@yourownhomestore.com. And then in addition, I will get this recording out to you probably in the next hour or so. I'm going to redo that little section where the slides weren't showing, and I'll get that out to all you guys. Thank you for coming, or if you're watching this afterward, thank you for watching it. We appreciate having you here.
Super. Thanks, Misty.
Thanks, Kim. Bye-bye.